Hello and welcome to another episode of the CX Monetization Podcast. I'm Srini, your host, and joining me today is Abhishek Singh. Abhishek Singh is the VP of AI at Zykrr. Abhishek, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Srini. Pleasure to be here.
Abhishek has got close to a decade and a half of experience with AI, working for startups and enterprises, and he's worked for companies that are based both in India as well as in the Bay Area. And he brings with him a wealth of experience of having transformed multiple value chains and processes with AI. So great to have you on the show, Abhishek.
Thank you.
Yeah. Today, we live in the era of AI, and there is AI being touted for everything across every industry and across every business function. Can you call out the BS when it comes to AI, particularly when it comes to our domain, which is customer experience?
Sure. So, see, there is like a lot of development in the AI space, as correctly you've pointed out, and I think it's also like well covered in media publications as well as research findings. Some of
Mhm.
that, of course, could be exaggeration or let's say like stuff which is futuristic, which is unproven. But I would say like a lot of that is genuine. Like companies are genuinely like turning data into profits. Companies are able to like build processes, build autonomous workflows, which let's say about half a decade back they
Mhm.
were impossible to fathom. Companies are able to
Yeah.
build this agentic AI structure, which is giving them capabilities which are like somewhat imaginary, let's say like about a decade back. Because like I've been into the field for 1.5 years, like the things we're exposed to now, the things which have become fairly simplistic to use were simply out of reach for most people. So I would say like more reality than hype at this point. But yes, I think people will still have to be careful, and I think uh, like platforms like Zykrr do a really good job in offering like genuine high quality AI stuff and making sure like our clients don't have to worry about let's say the stuff which is folks or stuff which is let's say unproven, because we have like multiple layers of like validation and testing and benchmarking internally. Yep.
Let's double click into that a little bit. Like in the space of CX, can you walk me through some of the areas where AI has become a reality today and it is actually actively being deployed?
CX as an area historically like lagging metrics like NPS and NES and CES scores and CSATs, right? Which are of course informative. They of course like help companies understand how they have done in the past. One of the things that AI is really like shining at in terms of like making that numerical impact really clear, helping people build scenarios like plan for scenarios well in advance. We have something called as a survey generator and a response generator at Zykrr. So like what clients can do is like as they can simply like generate campaigns and populate it with data to see like how it's actually looking like and iterate multiple times. So I think what they're able to like surface to their users or prospects is basically a much more iterated and like corrected version as opposed to something which is work in progress. And that is really a win-win both for the client as well as for the user. And this is basically what I call as a closed loop learning, right? That we save them so much money and time, and like very efficiently, very quickly with just one person team they're able to get those simulations done and help.
So how exactly does a generated survey differ?
Typically what we've seen is people end up taking anywhere from uh, like 30 minutes to like 1.5 2 hours to generate like full blown campaigns, sometimes even longer historically. And that like basically means people will have to put in like a lot of manual efforts. Also there's like a good amount of let's say QA involved, a good amount of possibility for like manual errors or let's say cross team errors, just because the editor and let's say people who are pollinating in may not have the full context. There might be some like information asymmetry. But I think with a built-in tool, like with a like AI-driven like campaign generator tool, people can simply prompt at us, and we will be able to generate campaigns. So like now they have a draft ready. All they have to do is just tweak the draft. So that's saving them approximately 80 to 90% of the time. So that's a huge one, because historically, if it was taking you like 1.5 hours on average to create, let's say, a single campaign
Mhm.
with about 30 questions, now it's taking you about 10 minutes to generate it and like do the complete QA. So you're saving like 1 hour 20 minutes of time, which lets you do 5 more campaigns of the same sort and like iterate a lot faster.
How AI is playing a role in making sense of the data. Because we talk about this three-part structure, which is listen, interpret, and act. So so the listening part, the creation of the survey part is what you just explained. Then what about in the interpretation layer?
So interpretation, like it's one thing that we have systems out there which are able to holistically look at all the streams of data. We have multimodal data systems across various industries, but I think it's nearly impossible for most people to like make sense of all the data, just because it's there in so many varying formats. There are like data inconsistency issues throughout. There would be data incompatibility issues throughout. So like making sure there's a single touch point across different data sets. I think that itself is a huge piece of effort. But even when, let's say, that part gets resolved, interpreting that data with the right context in terms of driving the right actions and understanding what has really happened with the true statistical significance, with, let's say, the true uh, exploratory projections, that is always pretty hard for people, let's say, who don't come from a hardcore data background. So I think what really AI does is it's able to like go through all that process and data and layers, and help you produce a crisp summary, let's say, which would be like 4 bullet points or 6 bullet points, that hey, this is what you need to be doing. These are, let's say, the positives, these are the negatives, these are the shortcomings, these are the actionables. And we have been doing that at Zykrr pretty successfully for like several years now. We already have something called as campaign takeaways and positives, and things which are, let's say, areas of improvements. So every time, let's say, we get data terms from clients, or let's say we get data through integrations, we're able to turn them back not just with metrics, but also with, let's say, like key takeaways and insights, right, which they can communicate to, let's say, their board, to their team members, to also people who are right outside their team but might be very interested. Because going through, let's say, 50 different charts and 200 different metrics might take a few hours, but coming out with, let's say, those 5 actionable takeaways takes about a minute. And
Walk me through how next best action is enabled with AI.
so we have something
Yeah.
called as contextual constraints, right? And there have been examples, let's say, historically, where AI could only make sense of one part of your data, couldn't make sense or wasn't connected to like some of the other parts, right? So let's say uh, you have insurance companies who are able to like produce campaigns which are able to like talk about this would be the right discounts to offer, or this would be the right messaging to convey. But I think what they couldn't really accord for is that would the person on the ground uh, have, let's say, the leverage to offer those kind of discounts, or would have, let's say, the cultural appreciation for like some of the messaging across for different people he meets in the audience, right? So some of those things were just like gray box. But fortunately, given Gen AI is multimodal by nature, it's able to like look at data across all variants, across all forms, and at the same time, not just like external data, but also like taking like a lot of qualitative inputs from the company's internal knowledge bases, as well as their own set of guidelines, which again gets validated across multiple layers. You are able to produce predictions which get verified across different team members. We have things like human in the loop, but at the same time, even like across response layers, we have mechanisms which just make sure that the final predictions, the final outcomes are much more in sync with the ground realities. And like some of the products that we have built at Zykrr around it are basically, we have case intelligence products, we have feedback intelligence products, we have response intelligence products, we have conversation intelligence products, which are already like live at multiple customers. And some of the things that we're trying to build in future would be around case resolution intelligence and around, let's say, adaptive dashboards and keep intelligent KPIs, right? Just to make sure like people with the limited time that they have, right, to view these numbers, they're able to see the numbers which matter the most to them based on their role, based on the company, based on the industry they're at. Because otherwise, analytics itself will become a full-time job, and they wouldn't have the time left to do things which are more exciting and what they have been like hired for.
We are trying to
Yep.
make the CX community move from passive metrics, and then we are trying to move that into active monetization opportunities. So, where do you feel that AI can play a role?
So I think we call this journey measurement to monetization, right? And this is something we have taken like a lot of pride in internally at Zykrr, that we have been building products for the last couple of years, which are very much headed in the same direction. But at the same time, that's also where I see most of the industries going, right? Measurement, like let's say with NPS, CSAT, CSI scores, NES, some of the others, which are of course very informative. They are of course impactful to an extent, but they only tell you about things which have happened in the past. And at the same time, uh, finance teams and investment bankers just wouldn't be super sure like how that translates into the next big wave of profits, right, for your company. This is of course like one part is like company culture, but the other part is basically choosing the right tools which are able to do the translations for you internally, speak in terms of revenue metrics, and also not just speak in terms of revenue metrics, but also convert them into, let's say, source of revenue and opportunities for revenue, right? Like for example, American Express has something called as revenue risk scores. This is something they have published into their 2024 and 2023 like annual reports, right? Now they're just able to quantify the impact of analytics and quantify the impact of, let's say, different actions to how that would like translate into more revenues. Uh, we are trying to do something similar at Zykrr. We have our own set of revenue metrics. We have predictive analytics campaigns which are able to tell you that what is the role of every single factor for your campaign success. And also we have built beta tools around, let's say, churn protection, right, which are able to again quantify empirically drivers which are like leading to churn, and what could be the later impact as you make some delta improvements to different factors. So let's say uh, if you have an ARR of, let's say, $5 million, and let's say 3 million of that is at risk, and there's a factor which is making a 60% impact towards helping or like at least shaping those $3 million of customers make a particular decision. So if you improve the particular factor by, let's say, 5% over there, you're translating that into hundreds of thousands of dollars of expected profits or revenue for your company. So this is just one way is to start transforming your analytics and start translating your analytics into revenue and recurring metrics, which just makes a lot more sense across the company, and that helps companies triage a set of actions they should be taking based on the revenue impact and the other potential impact besides, let's say, the historical CX metrics.
How is Zykr's AI stack different?
Sure. See, Zykrr is close to a decade old in the world of CX. So there's like, of course, plenty of industry experience sitting inside the company. We have like experienced veterans, and I think like a lot of that industry knowledge has made it into our products as well as processes, and as well as our interactions with different customers. And that gives us again like a good chunk of data and a vast repository of data to first of all explore how our customers are doing and use that data to continue to iterate and improvise our products on a monthly basis. uh, so the way I look at Zykrr, and if I compare Zykrr to some of the other tools in the CX market, there are plenty of like really high quality tools, but I see them more as atomic solutions, right? So if we just go back to chemistry for like 10 seconds, so you have atoms, you have molecules, you have compounds, right? So and they all have a role to play. It's just that they're very different. Like atoms was, of course, the smallest measurable part, right? That just adds on to the matter. So I think many of the other tools I see over there are essentially atomic solutions. But I think what we're trying to build at Zykrr, and even more so, going forward, is basically compound solutions, right? Where we're able to, first of all, do holistic data integration across all points of customer journey. Second, we're able to add a layer of like qualitative feedback as well as like company guidelines as well as their own set of rules to how they would be able to make sense of data, how they will be able to consume data and take actions around it. And third, of course, we have our own set of responses. We have our own set of findings across so many years of industry experience and data that we've collected. That just helps build make our models a lot better, a lot more effective. So when you add these three different things to it, it just becomes multimodal AI in play, which is contextualized, which is able to take in real time feedback, which is able to adjust and adapt based on the customer's requirement. And just to give us more momentum, we have an outstanding success team, which just helps us with that last mile communication and last mile contextualization, where every time, let's say, there are very bespoke and specialized requirements, like out of the box requirements, which, let's say, can't be made with out of the box tools, sometimes even with our own set of tools. Like that's where CX teams jumps in and helps build solutions on top of the products. And that really often, most of them, they make it to our next set of features, right? So it's not just a win for customers that they're able to get solutions which are much more customized to them. It's also a win for us at Zykrr because we're just able to grow our products much more strategically, much more measurably based on consumers requirements and based on how the market is changing, right? Because
Perfect. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for joining the CX Monetization podcast.
absolutely, Shrini, I'm looking forward to another session. Thanks a lot.